Hey guys, so I'm sitting here with the Ouija board in front of me. As I mentioned, this is the first time actually recording a reading I've done with the board. I've had it for about a week now, so I've probably used it every other day last week leading up to doing the session. So I'm not really sure what is going to happen here. I have used it earlier tonight. It's about 10:30 at night now. Here I've found using it later at night has given me better results. I think it's just because there's less distraction around and everything like that. From what I can kind of tell, I'm not really sure. It could just be a number of different reasons, but I'm just gonna, open the sort of the session up and kind of see what has, if anything's going to come through. So there's a lot of different information out there on how to use the board. I've gone into, I've already gone into sort of in depth before even sitting here. As you would have just heard how to sort of use it. Well, in my opinion, how to use it. So the way I kind of start is I do actually think it is a bit of it is quite a spiritual experience, I think. I think that's the best way to sort of approach it. So kind of giving yourself a bit of time, kind of just focus on your breathing. I haven't actually done any of that yet because I've just sort of sat down and started recording. So right now, I'm just going to close my eyes and pretty much this is kind of very different for me to do on the podcast, to be honest. I'm just sitting here actually thinking about what I'm doing, but I kind of just focus all my energy onto what I'm about to do. Is I just want to open myself up to positive spirits, positive entities, extraterrestrials, anything, spirit guides, angels, pretty much anything that could be out there that would like to come through and actually speak with us today. And obviously, as I've said, I am recording this, as we all know, but I haven't done that before, so I'm not sure if that's going to affect the result in any way, but I guess we're going to find out. Anyway, this is the first sort of attempt. There might be multiple attempts over the course of this week or however long to actually maybe get a result for you guys. But so I'm just going to sit here in real time, obviously, so just give me a minute or so. Okay, so I'm just going to get my planchette here and just kind of chuck it right over the top of the G. I've only ever read once online that's kind of where you should start and have it facing you. So I've just kind of been doing that for the most part. So I'm just going to, some people at this point will say a prayer or something sort of along those lines, but I'm just kind of, it's not so much a prayer, but it's just kind of putting out what I want currently. So I can already kind of feel something always coming through, to be honest. I'm feeling a bit of movement already. So I just want to open up the session to any positive entities, spirits, anything along those sort of lines. Only positivity, only positive things to come through, nothing negative. If there is anything negative, I'll just close that conversation with you. So anything positive, please come through. There's a few different entities I've spoken to in the past week or so. So if any of those would like to come through and speak with me, that would be really greatly appreciated. So one thing some people also say to do is to almost give yourself a little bit of movement just to begin with. So as you can see, that's me physically moving this. You might see on the camera there, my arm movement is very, I don't know, it's a very different movement to when the planchette decides to move itself. So it gives you a bit of an idea anyway. I'm just going to rest that back on the G. Okay, so I can already feel some very slight movements. I'm just going to take my palms off the board to kind of let this kind of start to get a bit of a movement. As you can kind of see there, darting kind of around the G a little bit and sort of off now just by itself. So just before I ask any questions, I find it kind of helps just to sort of, let whoever's here just kind of figure themselves out a bit, move around the board a little bit. just to kind of figure out, because our energy is very different to anyone who's going to try to speak to us through the board's energy. So it's sort of like we have to get our energy to a certain level and they have to bring theirs down to a certain level to sort of make this session work and kind of communicate. Okay, so is someone here with me who would like to communicate with me here tonight? Okay, so I've gotten an S. It's gliding quite easily. And we've just stopped on M. One thing I'm getting a lot, I found, is I'm assuming a lot of initials. Something like that doesn't necessarily spell a word per se. And now I'm sort of just hanging around the bottom of the S and the T on the board. So I'm sort of going to take that as that could potentially be someone's initials. So if SM is your initial, can you let us know, either by just telling us yes or no? So the planchette is now heading sort of towards the top right of the board. I'm assuming we're going to be heading up to no, but I could be wrong. Yep. Very easily heading up to no. Okay, so that's sort of me assuming that SM could be an initial right there. So I have found I sort of will sit on these questions sometimes for quite a while and kind of figure out, well, what does that mean? And often in my experience, whoever is here speaking with us hasn't actually been able to tell us. So I kind of just move on and maybe I can come back to that. So are you someone who is deceased, who has once walked on the earth? Okay, so we've come back down to S. I'm just kind of very lightly resting my fingers on the planchette here. I'm kind of just literally moving along with where it's kind of wanting to take me. And we've headed back over to M. So I'm not sure. That could literally mean anything. And as you kind of just heard there, when you start to assume, you could be wrong. So could you maybe tell us what SM means by any chance? And I don't... Okay, so we've stopped on W. We've stopped on V. It's like we're going over... Now I've stopped on U. So we're kind of just going backwards here through the alphabet a little bit. So this sometimes can happen as well. I've been finding where whatever is here trying to talk kind of darts through a bunch of letters and actually doesn't make any sense. I'm not really sure what that is, but from what I can kind of tell, it's still kind of our energy kind of figuring it out, because I think you really have to be in tune to actually get a proper message come through. All right. So I was kind of just holding it back there a little bit, and we're still moving, kind of heading down towards the bottom corner of the board. Yep. So we're probably going to actually fall off the board, which kind of I find happens a fair bit. So I kind of just usually pick up the planchette, pop it just back down. Okay, so I'm going to ask another question of the board. You didn't quite answer when I asked if you were someone who has walked the earth. So I might phrase it in another way, then we'll move on from there. Are you a spirit? So the planchette is kind of heading up towards no, but it hasn't given us a definite no. It's kind of just hanging down below. Not forcing it at all to go up towards no, even though it's hanging around there. If it wants to go up to no, yep, which it is, it's completely making its own decision. Yep, and we're at no. So I think a lot of people can kind of freak out at this point and go, well, if it's not someone who is dead talking to us, who could it be? And I think a lot of people assume it's something really negative, like a demon or something at this point. But it, from my case anyway, it never is. I find it is normally a spirit guide or something along those sort of lines. So we can ask that question, because I did speak to a spirit guide earlier tonight already. So are you a spirit guide or an angel or something to that effect? So we're sort of heading towards the middle of the board, hanging around sort of these bottom letters. So just hovering at the moment. No definite answer, which can quite often happen. Yeah, we're just sort of hovering. Okay, interesting. I'll just ask again. Are you a spirit guide or something to that effect? Maybe an angel or someone watching over. Any letter you want to stop on, or any number or anything, yes or no. You just need to make it nice and obvious for me that you've stopped there. Okay. And we're heading up towards yes. Yep. Okay. So I think still the thing with the Ouija board is you got to take everything with a grain of salt, as everyone always says. So we've just asked this entity whether they're a spirit guide or not. It took them a long time to answer us, and we did get a yes answer anyway. So once again, that could be the case. It might not be the case. It could literally also be my subconscious moving the planchette around, potentially. I definitely haven't ruled out all of those sort of factors. But as I've mentioned, I've had experiences with this particular board already where I've kind of gone, wow, it's pretty full on. But I haven't actually yet had that happen since. So normally, I might speak to someone for 10 minutes or so, kind of see if they sort of get a bit of a vibe. The other day I actually had a lot of people just saying no, but didn't want to talk to me anymore. So I kind of said goodbye and left it there, Okay, well, I might say goodbye. Thank you for your time. I really appreciated you coming through and speaking with me. So now I just move the planchette over to goodbye. And that's kind of the end of speaking with that particular entity. So I spoke with someone earlier tonight who gave me the initial LN. And they told me that they were a spirit guide to me. They didn't originally. And I kind of asked, are you my spirit guide? And I'm pretty sure from memory the board spelled out no, or it went over to no. And I said, well, whose spirit guide are you? And then it spelled out my name. So, and it did that twice, both times. And then I believe it told me twice as well that it was a spirit guide. So I did ask as well if I could reach back out to that particular person as well. Sorry, it didn't tell me twice it was a spirit guide. It told me its initials were LN twice. I'm not sure what that stands for or anything like that, but it told me that twice. So I haven't actually been successful at this yet, trying to call someone back. But if this works, it'll be something, that's for sure. So I'm just going to focus for a minute here, trying to see if I can get that person, get that entity to come back and to speak with me. Can the spirit guide or angel who I spoke to earlier, LN, come through and communicate with me again? I know it took a lot of energy last time to come through and speak with me. but it'd be greatly appreciated if we could just have a quick chat one last time tonight. Okay, so the planchette has just moved over to L. So whoever I'm speaking to now is giving me much more definite moves. And I always find that really interesting with the board is you can often tell that there is someone different you're speaking to. And we've just stopped on N. One thing, you can't actually see me on the camera, but I just had my eyes closed during that. I kind of enjoy doing that, so it kind of doesn't alter what I'm doing or sort of seeing, you know. So thank you to LM for coming. LN. I think I just said M for LN actually coming back through. It's greatly appreciated. We kind of just left off with speaking about how we were sort of communicating, and I'm hoping. I guess I have a question. Throughout time, and this can just be a yes or no answer. If we both continue to talk to one another, will the communication become stronger, or we'll be able to communicate with ease more so? Because that's something I'm really interested in with the board. It could just be a yes or no. I'm just kind of moving through a bunch of letters at the moment. Let's see what's going to sort of say over here. We've just kind of stopped. That's okay. Sometimes I don't get a definite answer like that. I don't really hang on the question for too long because I'm not even sure. Potentially, whoever's on the other end of this, might not have understood the question, or it could be a number of different things. So I just kind of go, okay, well, let's move on to something else. Are you here in the room with me right now? Okay, we've just moved up to no. So I can assume that, would you be watching from somewhere overhead? Yes. Something just interesting happened there. I hardly had my hand on the board because I'm kind of positioned in such a way that it's sort of hard for me to reach that top corner for yes, and I kind of was barely touching it, and it just kind of did this little slide thing. So that always blows me away when you do have those moments of, wow, that's definitely pulling or pushing, you know. Okay, so watching from overhead, so, you know, that's always a good thing, I suppose, rather than if it was looking up or something along those sort of lines. So I'm just wondering if I could ask maybe a question about myself. These ones are always a bit hard, but maybe something along the lines of the see, this is the tricky part. You get your board set up and you sort of get yourself into a bit of a place, and you have to start asking particular questions, you know. One thing I always sort of am interested in is if I've made the right decision to moving into state. I've been here for about 9 months now, so maybe I can ask you that question. Did I make the right decision in moving into state? Okay, it's just told me no. I spoke to someone the other day through the board, and it actually said yes. So this was interesting, I think, to have differing opinions. Do you think I would be better off if I moved back to Queensland? Okay, I've just stopped on T. M. PM. Kind of just below a bunch of letters at the moment, nothing really there. So as I said, that does happen every couple of questions I'm finding at the moment. Okay, so now we're not really getting any. Oh, hang on. Sometimes I start to rest my hand down just for a quick break. But the board has other ideas. Going back over to M now. Yeah, I'm not sure what TMM means, if it means anything, but that's okay. It's a pretty open-ended question, to be honest. I like the other day I asked an entity, I can't remember exactly how the way I phrased the question, but it was something along the lines of, what do I have on my head? And I was wearing a hat, and it did spell out hat. So just for just for the sake of doing this, I'm wearing a grey shirt. I've probably just said that out loud, so I did say that out loud, so it's kind of giving it away. But what colour shirt am I currently wearing? I'm getting some movement. Okay, we have stopped on G. Okay, we could potentially be saying green though. Ooh, it's really fighting at the moment. I'm just kind of resting my hand ever so lightly here. Okay, so we've got G. What colour shirt am I wearing? It's really not wanting to move now. That sometimes blows me away too. It's almost like there's so much movement, and the next minute, there's almost nothing. And that's when you almost really realize how much you can influence the board. Because as soon as the planchette doesn't want to move, you kind of start to feel your little movements. Could you please spell out the next few letters to tell us what color shirt I'm wearing? It'd be greatly appreciated. That's it. Now we're moving again. I'm not really sure what that means at times. Okay, we have R. Okay. I'm barely touching the planchette now. Sometimes I find that helps, because I feel like you can't really move it with just two fingers that easily. So, or even just one. Yeah, like just doing it with one sometimes blows me away, because I'm literally not touching this. Like I'm touching it. We just got E. Oh, hang on. Sorry. Give me a definite E. Sometimes it doesn't quite get directly in the middle. I can't just go, all right, I want you to figure it out. But just using one hand there. So we have G, R, E. There's probably one other letter still. Or you could be spelling green, but I don't wear green. But that sort of blows me away sometimes, is how lightly you can be touching it, and yet the amount of movement you kind of get. And we can already tell right now I'm heading down towards Y. I can't actually see the planchette at the moment, so this is me not manipulating the board. So as soon as it sort of is happy to stop, it can be hard, obviously, because I can't see, sort of know whether or not it's actually going to be in the right sort of position. But I sort of just tell the board, stop at a definite sort of position, and then I'll sort of look. I think it's pretty happy. I've just had a bit of a look. Yep. Y. So it took a minute, didn't it, to spell out grey? But obviously, thank you. Yes, that was the right answer. So whoever was speaking to, LN right now, can obviously see me sitting in this room to some extent. That or not necessarily, or they could hear what I'm saying. Obviously because of just speaking out loud. But either way, I think it's kind of interesting to say, can you tell me what I'm wearing? And then it can, or what color I'm wearing, something sort of along that. Where it's quite a simple question, I think. It's nothing. I think a great way would be to start trying to spell words that you didn't actually know how to spell and seeing if that would work. But I'm not going to do that now, because if that is the case and I start making mistakes, that'd be a bit embarrassing. But what else can I ask? And this is actually a big part of doing the Ouija board, is actually trying to think of intelligent questions sometimes, because it's so easy to sort of just get caught up in, okay, well, here's a good one. How long, because I always like using the numbers as much as possible, because they're always kind of, interesting. How long have you been my spirit guide for? How many years? I'm just kind of letting the planchette move over now. And just stop when you have a definite answer. Okay, so we've stopped on 2. Yep. Any other numbers that you have in mind? Stop whenever you want. Sort of hovering between the 5 and the 4 at the moment. Now you sort of just stopped. So I've got 2. Is it just 2 years, or is there another number a part of that? He's kind of going over a bunch of numbers. Yeah, now we're just kind of gone past the 0 now. That's all right. Is it 2 years? How many years have you been my spirit guide for? Okay, we've stopped on the 0. So is that 20 years? Can you let me know yes or no if that's correct? Have you been my spirit guide for 20 years? Once again, now we're getting some very sort of slow, slight movements. Now, understand that it takes quite a bit of energy for spirits and entities to sort of come through. But we are heading up towards yes, which is quite a bit of a stretch for me. Thank you. 20 years, which would be right because I'm 23 this year. So I was interested if it was actually going to say 23. I just bumped that microphone. Sorry, it's a bit invasive with where my hands are. I'm just thinking, is there anything else I want to ask right now? This is the second time I've spoken to this spirit guide today. I might just, all right, let's do like one last sort of big question with it. And like, I don't think we're sort of at this level, but is there any message that you could pass on to me? Anything at all that, would be great to sort of just come away with for the day. Maybe something positive that can kind of, go to bed tonight thinking, oh, that's really good to hear. H, okay. I'm really focusing here. So it's going up and down at the moment. Very interesting movement. You've done such a great job of speaking to me today. I really appreciate the amount of energy I know it takes. So I've got H. Anything else you want to spell out to give me an idea? It's okay if you don't want to. So I've just come back from checking the camera. I have taken my hand off the planchette. So I've kind of ruined that whole thing I was just talking about. But I think it has recorded still, just in parts or something along those lines. I'm not really sure. But that's okay. So I think maybe just before I end this session, maybe I'll just try one more time just to talk to someone else, and we'll see if we get anything, and then we'll probably just wrap it up. I think this is really interesting because this is kind of like real deal Ouija board, sort of in real time, I suppose. Like, I know there's heaps of videos online about people doing this, but for me, I'm new to this, and I'm not skeptical in the sense, but I was always kind of like, what's this all about? So I think it's kind of interesting for me to do this for you guys, and hopefully you can kind of, I want to encourage people to use this tool, to be honest. And I think I'll speak about that in a minute. I probably should just get this part out of the way. Just so, we can kind of cut to the chase. So, okay. If there's anyone here who'd like to come forward, any sort of spirit, entity, ghost, spirit guide, angel, anything positive is welcome to come through, nothing negative. We just want positivity here. I might even just say this. I'm actually recording this. There's a bunch of people who are really interested to hear your story, what you have to say. So if there's anything that can kind of come through, that'd be greatly appreciated. So I'm just kind of sitting the planchette down, getting a bit of movement. Really not forcing it though. It's always easy when you first sort of start out that it almost feels like you're forcing it to want to move. And you can start to feel if your arms are kind of getting a bit tired or whatever, and you start to sort of, like mine sort of are now. I'm actually sitting quite far away from the desk. So my arms are quite stretched. So they kind of start to get a bit tired, and you can kind of start to feel yourself moving around yourself, and you can kind of start to feel that that pressure almost telling you not to do that and going in a different direction. Is there someone here who'd like to speak to me? Okay, we're kind of just going to the bottom corner. I had this happen earlier where the planchette was actually going at each four corners of the board. And I know that's like a big no-no, but I actually don't believe that is opening a portal or anything like that. I think that actually is just the board working to try to get its energy to actually communicate with us, from what I understand. As I said, I haven't had anything negative happen with the board. Okay, is there anyone here? Maybe you'd like to spell out your name or initial, something to that effect. Have you stopped on F? If you stop there, just make it nice and obvious because you're kind of still moving. No, you're still kind of going. Okay, that's all right. And sometimes the planchette falls off the board as well. I think the corners of the board should have been made bigger, to be honest. Okay, we're just going up to yes. There is someone here, from what I can understand. Okay, great. Are you someone who is deceased? Did you once live on Earth and you've now passed? I'm not actually sure if anyone has actually answered yes to that question. Maybe. I can't actually remember now. Yeah, it seems to be a hard one for them to actually answer. Sometimes I feel like other questions are much more yes or no. But we are, by the looks of it, heading back up to yes. Okay, cool. So this is always one that I like to ask after that would be, when did you pass? And it's always interesting, I think, if I like to close my eyes at this point and see if the planchette will actually take you down towards the numbers. And obviously I'd like it to go down to the numbers, but I'm definitely not in any way manipulating this to go down to the numbers, because the more you use this as well, you kind of do subconsciously know where letters and numbers are to a certain extent. But I'm still pretty new and I don't know it that well, So even if I wanted to move down towards those numbers, it'd be a bit of a stab in the dark to actually stop. So we're just getting a lot of movement, but not really any decisive messages. And I feel like that might be because I've sort of have broken that concentration that we had for quite a while there because of the camera stopping and everything to that sort of effect. And I really do think that's a big part in actually doing these readings is the concentration has to be there for it to actually work. And my computer's just fallen asleep, so I hope that's still recording. Kind of getting a bit of a real time, kind of thing. All right, now we're just going up to no. Okay, all right. I'm gonna close this session. Thank you if anyone was here, speaking with me. Goodbye. Okay. Also, I guess maybe I'm a little superstitious. They say don't leave your planchette or your whatever you're using to actually read the letters and numbers on the board after you use it. So you kind of pop it down off to the side. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but I try to be really respectful to an extent of using the board. Cool. So the camera is still recording, even though it doesn't really matter now. But so there's kind of a real-time view of the Ouija board, and it's definitely not what I expected in a few different ways. I think it worked a lot better than I assumed it did, and it also didn't at the same time. I think the first time I was going to get on it, I literally thought I was going to be, this thing was going to be telling me all sorts, and it was going to be like, someone died in this house or whatever, I don't know. But I thought it was going to be way more extreme, not negative, but just like getting a message. But then I sort of realized how hard it actually is to get it to work. Because I feel like you have to really put the time in to get it to work and shit. Like you might have sat down, if you've used one before, you might have sat down with people at a party and it's telling you all sorts of shit. But for me, and because I use it alone as well, I think it is harder. I did use it with someone for the first time I used it, and it was slower and it didn't really give us much. So that's why I was like, well, I'm going to do it by myself, which has been great. But it has, at times, as you saw there at the end, it was just I wasn't saying anything. The other two entities we spoke to earlier were pretty fast to be like, yep, we're here. We're telling you something. But that one was just kind of like moving around. I asked, I think, a pretty simple question of when did you die? And it wouldn't even take us to the numbers. So I think times like that, you could sit here and really work with it. And that's a big thing, is having patience. And I have a fair bit of patience, but I'm finding with the Ouija board, it takes such a long time. And it's not necessarily exciting all the time either. It's quite slow, and you start to get a bit tired because you're concentrating and you're just a bit drained. If you're doing it like I'm doing it right now, it's like 11 o'clock at night. You're kind of like, oh, okay, I could be like going to bed or something, something else like that. So it can be quite draining, and it kind of is. I've had friends tell me they've used them and that they've felt very drained after, and that's kind of when you've done it right. So I'm not sure. I think it's really interesting, and I think just then too, like tonight, speaking with Ellen, whoever the spirit guide is, twice, excuse me, has been really interesting. And the fact that the board was able to spell out my name twice, was able to tell me 3 times that we spoke to Ellen, that I had a grey shirt on. I don't know. You guys can kind of make up your own assumptions to all of that. And I'll probably do a closer to this episode as well, where I'm not sitting in front of the board. So I'll probably talk more to that extent. But this is, I guess, the first session, and I might even add more into this episode over the sort of course of the week. But this the first session, sitting down, recording the Ouija board. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.